Thank you for joining us, giving us the most precious thing you have, your time. Just some live reaction because we have a lot going on. And it's a Monday. I watched the president's press conference. I've kind of left this alone a little bit because I wanted to wait until it was completely done. But very interesting stuff going on. So we had the downed airmen rescued, thankfully, both of them safely. We have the Iran war, and we have a couple other things. Let's start with the good news. This operation to rescue these two pilots that were down, the pilot and the weapons systems officer. I did a little bit of media. I did some media this morning. I just got done with the Canadians about 20 minutes ago doing a hit that'll be on Newsforum tonight. By the way, if you don't have Newsforum Canada in your information rotation, please add them to them, especially Forum Daily News. They do an excellent job, especially Teresa and them. Good down the middle, old school reporting. They're expanding. They're doing a good job. Very proud to work with them. But this press conference with the president, they rescued the two airmen. Our SEER and combat search and rescue capabilities are amazing. And this is another in what has been a recently long list of amazing tactical successes by the American military. And it's amazing that nobody got hurt. It's amazing they got all the assets. I do not care. I know people are putting out, well, we lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Nobody cares. From someone that's been in the military, we don't care. We can build more 130s. We can build more helicopters. The ethos of the American military has always been, we can build more stuff. We get our people back. And that's what we did here. It doesn't matter how many assets we lost doing it. We got the guys back. That's the important part. Something General Kane said in this press conference, though, and then we're going to cover the press conference, but I want to tie it to the good news right off the bat. And he started out saying, I'm going to be careful with my details because in case we have to do this again. This was a brilliant success, but if they have to do this again, the rate of success goes down. And every time we have to do things like this, the chance of something going wrong goes up. So again, we need off ramps to this, but I don't see one coming. And let's get into that based off this press conference. I think this press conference was a story that was a microcosm of all the problems of this Iran conflict, the Trump administration in general, but the Iran conflict specifically. Let's just break down how this went. President Trump got on the mic and rambled, low energy rambling for 25 minutes, at least by my count, maybe a little more. He was all over the place. He was reading, rambling. He got distracted. He came back to it. It was a mess. CIA Director Radcliffe gets on the mic. Very competent professional. The CIA did a wonderful job here and has done wonderful work lately. I know we have lots of historical problems, but they did well here. John Radcliffe sounded like an adult, sounded like the professional he is, sounded like he knew what he was talking about, gave a wonderful briefing. Secretary of Defense Hegseth gets up, and he talks like somebody that's a badly overwritten Michael Bay character in an action film. He just cannot talk like a human being. He has to blow up everything he says to the nth degree. He has to talk verbose. He is a showman. He's a broadcaster. He learned his trade on Fox News well, and that's how he talks. And it really is kind of glaring in situations like this. He praised Trump. He praised God. He praised the military as well, but he put it in all those little Hegsethisms we all now know to where it's just so over the top, it's really hard to listen to. And then General Kane gets up, and General Kane talks like a competent military professional adult, human being would talk in that situation. And that's what he sounded like. And he gave a good brief, and he opened with the statement I just made. Is like, we're not going to give details in case we have to do this again. And then he gave as much detail as he possibly could of, extraordinary bravery and what the actual troops on the ground did. And then President Trump got up, and the question and answer period was a mess. He rambled again. He gives conflicting answers to everything. When you're negotiating the end of a conflict, the Iranian regime, of course, is very duplicitous in its own right, but the deadlines move. Just in this briefing, he talks about how we wiped out their nuclear capability and then turns around and says, well, we had to go to war to stop their nuclear capability. We want to rebuild their country, but we're going to blow it out of existence tomorrow if you don't negotiate. He brags about bringing down a bridge. He brags about the capabilities of the American military, which we can do, but he doesn't seem to be able to how to direct that rhetorically towards an end goal other than just threatening it to get what he wants. He once again, by name, disparaged allies, South Korea caught some strays. Japan caught some strays. NATO got their usual hatred that he's been doing normally. A couple other countries. It was all over the place. It was very Trumpian. It's exactly what you expect from President Trump. But it was that kind of incoherence and that kind of all over the place is part of the problem with this to start with. The president has really painted himself into a corner here. And again, I just got done doing Canadian news and they do things a little differently. Same thing when I do UK news. I do a lot of overseas media, my intake media, because American media is very much became a specific genre of how to do media that I frankly don't like very much and don't think is very helpful. It's a business model. I get it. Let's not, pretend otherwise. But doing the background before I do the interview, and they're just like, why is this way? And honestly, a lot of times as a designated American explainer for our Canadian national news folks, I sometimes don't have a great answer. Like, look, this is personality driven. It's not logic driven. This is the problem we're getting into. President Trump's really parked himself into a corner. Let's just go over the last 2 weeks or so. So now we have this deadline, and he reiterated again that, we're going to blow him up. There was the awful, vulgar, the fact that it's not a disqualifying tweet is kind of sad, and everybody's just kind of shrugged it off. But the, open the effing straight, praise be to Allah tweet yesterday. On March 22nd, he said, we're going to open it in 48 hours. That's the deadline. By the 26th of March, it went to 5 days. By the 27th, it was 10 days. April the 4th, a week later, it was 48 hours again. April the 5th, it was Tuesday, meaning tomorrow, as I record this. And then yesterday morning, it was open the effing straight by Tuesday. And then by the end of the day, it was by Wednesday. And now we're back to tomorrow night again, Tuesday night again. We'll see what happens. And then there's the conflicting reports about if there's even a negotiation or not. There's the third party stuff, the Pakistanis, the Turks, I think the Egyptians are involved. They're trying to broker something, but that doesn't really matter because the pertinent parties here are President Trump, the Israeli government under Netanyahu, and the Iranians. Until those three all agree on it, it doesn't matter because even if we stop doing something, Israel's kind of running their own parallel campaign that they may or may not be coordinating everything with us on. They may or may not stop bombing just because we do. And the Iranians have the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I just want to do the Hormuz thing real quick this way. This is the one lever that the Islamic regime has always had. This is the one lever that they've always prepared to use. If everything else fails, we're going to do this. If we're really threatened, we're going to do this. In the entire world, everybody that can read, write, and has a functional frontal cortex knew if you really put the Iranians back to the wall, the Iranian regime, I always want to keep the regime separate from the people. The Iranian regime was going to close the Strait of Hormuz and threaten the international economic order. That was the one thing they had. If all else fails, break glass and do that. And now they have. They're not going to back off that. The only way they're going to back off that is if America stops everything and says, we're not going to bomb you anymore and we're going to pull our stuff back, which of course we can't do. Normally, President Trump could just declare victory. He's got some tactical victories here. He's got some strategic victories here. They killed Khomeini. We have greatly diminished their military capability. We've embarrassed them, frankly. Between this and the Israeli stuff post-October 7th, their terrorist networks have really taken a pounding. You cannot overemphasize how much killing Soleimani really hurt them. He was the one that could do stuff like the Syrian operations, like working with the Russians. He was the one that really understood how to project their power. Since then, they've really had a leadership vacuum, frankly, in their strategic and tactical abilities. They've never really recovered from that. And now we've taken off even more of them. So normally he would just go say, okay, we've achieved our goals. We can go to the house. Problem is they closed the Strait of Hormuz. And if you pull the military assets out now and they don't open it, the willpower for us to reassert ourselves and go back to an open conflict after saying we want to go out, you can see why that's not a viable option. So the president really painted himself into a corner, and he painted himself in the corner with an Iranian regime who is on their break glass in case of emergency option, which is close the Strait of Hormuz. And now you see why I don't know how we're going to get everybody out of this one in one piece. Somebody's going to have to give here. And something important is going to have to give here. Either the economic order that comes through the Middle East is going to have to rapidly change. Iran is going to have a hammer grip on the Strait of Hormuz, or President Trump is really going to have to enforce one of these red lines that he keeps moving. And he's either been briefed or intrinsically knows the red lines he's laying down, where you start laying into infrastructure, is a whole different ballgame. For a couple of reasons. And I know everybody's screaming war crimes. Let's deal with the war crimes piece just real quick. Just bombing infrastructure in and of itself is not a war crime. There's what's called mixed use doctrine. You can hit a power plant that civilians use that also the military use. The legalese term is undue damage and undue misery upon civilian. That's in the eye of the beholder in a lot of ways. But no, you can hit infrastructure like roads and bridges and power plants. The problem is President Trump has already just gone on TV and say, I'm just doing it because you won't do what I want you to do. So that kind of makes the gray area more black and white in the wrong direction, frankly. So is he going to pull the trigger on that? I don't know what he's going to do because he's getting desperate. The reason you have vulgar tirades is because he's not getting his way on this. The reason he's mad at allies is because he's not getting his way at it. And mostly he's not getting his way because the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they're dug in, they're true believers. They really believe what they're doing, and they know how to read. They watched Afghanistan, they watched Vietnam, they watched Iraq. They know we can wait them out. And that's their tactical thing right now, even with the strait closed. We're going to close the strait. There's going to be economic pain and suffering. You can only bomb us so much, and we're going to wait you out. And they also have a calculation that if America starts hitting the infrastructure hard and really makes pain and suffering on the Iranian people and not just the regime, that the rally around the flag stuff, the regime can use that. And remember, this is a regime that killed 30, 40, 50,000 of their own people earlier this year. So the idea of an uprising was already kind of quenched before we even did this. This is all stuff that should have been factored in before we started the shooting war, but here we be. So why was this press conference such a microcosm? You have competent people that are executing amazing tactical things, like the rescue of the airmen, like a lot of the strikes, like the intelligence success of getting these leaderships, Khomeini on down. The tactical brilliance of the American military is unquestionable. It has no historic precedence. Our people are the best in the world. The problem is the tactical brilliance, like this rescue, throws in sharp relief how bad the strategic leadership of the civilian leadership is right now. They don't have a plan. The plan they had is not working out well, and they don't have a plan to how to get out of this mess. There's been some off ramps. The president has decided not to take them, and now he's got yet another deadline. And his red line is not just we're going to hurt you, it's we're going to obliterate your country. And then he'll turn around in the same press conference and say, well, we could rebuild your country. And then he'll turn around in the press earlier today walking out, well, what we really want, if I could just take the oil, I'd just take the oil. The president clearly doesn't understand all the ramifications here. And I know for a fact that he's being briefed because we don't have completely incompetent people. People are briefing him on this. He's either not hearing them, not listening, or not believing them, or he's picking and choosing what he wants to hear from the people who are briefing him. There's a mess here. We have midterm elections coming up. The Israelis are getting ready to have elections. There's a lot of pressure here outside of just the conflict. There's the economic pressure. There's the electoral pressure. This conflict is on the wrong end of public opinion by a wide margin, getting wider by the day. Now, the Republican base is closer, even though it's still a little bit, it's not popular, but it's not as bad there. But the general public really doesn't like this at all. And the president's own rhetoric, like what he did today, where he rambles and he goes back and forth, it doesn't help in negotiations. It doesn't help in articulating a mission. And it certainly doesn't help in the popularity of a conflict that people didn't want to start with. I don't know what's going to happen today and tomorrow. Doing media is always interesting. I set up this Canadian hit and I did a radio hit earlier this morning. Hopefully I get the copy of it so I can put it out to you guys. One thing she says, like, yeah, let's do it at 3:30 so we have the 1 o'clock press conference before you do the 3:30 media recording for the 6 o'clock news in Canada, because God knows what will happen, because it changes that fast and you don't know what might be coming next. I worry about President Trump in a lot of ways. It does not take much to go watch a clip from 2015 and 2016 and watch what we saw today. That's a guy that is not throwing as fast a fastball as he was then. He rambles a lot more. He's more tired. He's lower energy. frankly, I'm amazed he's held up as well as he has at the age he has with the way he does things. Hegseth, in his slathering of praise all over President Trump today in this press conference, like, he never sleeps, he's always up, all this sort of thing. Yeah, that's not great health for a guy that's on the north side of 80. This is all going to start catching up. You really wonder if success doesn't breed a little contempt for what we can and can't do. The operation against Moderna was so brilliantly done. Oh, Iran will be easy. It'll be like that. And it's not. It's a country of 100 million people. It's the oldest civilization on earth. There's even the majority, Persians are only 50 some percent of the population. It's a very diverse country. And the IRGC is some of the worst evil fanatics on the planet, and they know what they're doing. They're not just evil and wicked, they're efficient and competent, and they know what they're doing. And they're not just going to give up because you jawbone them into giving up. And the president seems to be trying to, what our Pentecostal friends would say, name it and claim it. He's hoping he can just say it and it happens. And the Iranians aren't going to do that. We are really at an inflection point with this conflict where President Trump can't really back off because it's going to lose face and give the Iranians a bigger lever in the Gulf. And he's got a lot of pressure from the GCC countries that we know he has a lot of financial ties to and a lot of ally ties to. He said today, they've been great. Well, of course they've been great. They slather him with praise and money. Not that they're not important allies, but let's call it what it is. We have the Israeli piece on this where Marco Rubio flatly said, they were going to attack anyway, so we went with them because they were going to bomb us in retaliation anyway. And then you have the economic parts of this. And I don't think the president can juggle all this right now. I don't think he is thinking long term. And with his comments with the allies is we have a completely transactional president. And the problem with conflicts is conflicts are not transactional. They're not business deals. There's ramifications. There's give and take. There's no easy answers. There's no right answer in a lot of cases. There's just trade-offs. Well, we're going to end this conflict and you're going to get this and we're going to get this and we may have to fight it out again. If you don't know how these things work, we have a North and South Korea to this day. Some of us are old enough to remember unification of Europe after the Iron Curtain fell. That took decades. These things have tentacles. They're not business deals. They're not transactional. And if you just go into them for the optics of it and you don't have a really great plan, this is what it's starting to look like. When you don't articulate it ahead of time, regime change, military, degrading their military capability, which is they've been killing Americans for 47 years. Fine, let's do that. But what's that look like? What's your plan? What's your level of degrading where you say, okay, mission complete? None of this has been articulated well. And the president today in this press conference took both sides of multiple issues like that and said them both sometimes in the same response. It's hard to plan that way. It's hard to plan an economy when it's a transactional based off how he wants to do it. It's hard to plan a military campaign when it's transactional based off how he wants to do it. This is President Trump in his good, bad, and indifferent full-on effect, doing whatever he wants with very little restraint. And this is where it's brought us. Now, Congress could reel this in. They're not going to. We will have an election and the people will decide if they think we should have a different Congress to try to rein him in. I suspect we probably will. But until then, this is what we're doing. He's not getting his way with the Supreme Court. He's not getting his way foreign policy-wise, and he's not getting his way economically. But we had 50 years of book on Donald J. Trump and how he would react, and we had 4 years from his first term on how he would behave himself if he didn't get his way. The difference is, and this is an important difference, that first term was stocked full of traditional GOP folks. He had a lot of people that would tell him no. He had a lot of people he had to fire and run off because they would tell him no. He doesn't have the Mattises and the others in the cabinet right now. He has a cabinet full of sycophants, and he's already throwing them under the bus. He's already gotten rid of 2 of them just in the last 10 days. The Attorney General's gone, and, of course, Kristi Noem. And Secretary of Defense Hegseth is clearly over his skis. Sorry, he is. Luckily, the American military is very competent underneath him, but that's going to come back to bite us as well at some point. We'll have to see. I would love to be able to sit here and do pontificating, talking heading and go, oh, I think this is going to happen. This guy. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I think it would be foolish to say otherwise. I think President Trump has some options that would be the least bad options to kind of get out of this mess. I don't know if he'll take them. I hope he does. We need to get out of this conflict. I don't want to say as quickly as possible because that would open up a big can of worms, but as efficiently as possible with some goals that we can tangibly hold on to push the ball down the field in the Middle East going forward. Obviously, the GCC coalition, where you have the GCC and the Israelis and the Americans all fighting Iran nominally or firepower wise, is a major development that could prove useful in the future. We'll have to see. Obviously, reordering the economic development to where it's not dependent on the Strait of Hormuz. We know the Saudis have the East-West pipeline, which is now running full throttle, but that can't replace everything coming through, but it's a start. These are all things that can be dealt with in the future if you have a steady hand to do it now. But what I see right now is President Trump flailing because he doesn't have a good option that he likes. But that's the problem with conflict. You have a lot of options you don't like, and you got to pick a bad one and just kind of go with it and try to make the best of it. We'll see what the president does. So to reiterate here quickly, excellent work by the American military. I cannot wait to get the full details of this rescue mission. This is going to be some epic stuff. I was doing radio this morning, and those of you that are older than me, the movie writes itself because there were so many parallels to what we did here and what we did with Desert One and Operation Eagle Claw, which was a disaster. And the lessons we learned from the Operation Eagle Claw disaster was directly why we made JSOC what JSOC is. It's how we changed how we do combat search and rescue. We took the lessons from Vietnam and the SEER school and the SEER training that we give is exceptional. There's multiple levels of it. And all of that came together. You know, if you're a writer, that movie writes itself. Desert One to this time it works because we learned the lessons and we have an improved like it just writes itself. And then you have the individual bravery of the two airmen that were shot down, especially the second one that looks like he was really doing some superhuman stuff to survive. And then the people that went in and got him and all the assets that went in and got him. And it's all hands on deck, and we are going to go get our people is an ethos that is important to the United States military because the United States military, think about it this way, and I talked about this on the radio this morning, knowing that they can tell this story now to everybody from basic training, officer training on up of, look what we did to get this guy back. You do your mission. We will come get you. That is such a key component to the ethos of the American military that we're going to come get you. You just do your job. Don't worry about it. We will move heaven and earth to save you. That makes better war fighters. And that is an important part of what we do as a military and as a country. So kudos to all them. But again, and I just can't say this enough, the tactical brilliance of the military to be able to do pretty much anything we ask them to do has its limits, and that limit is the strategic leadership of the civilian leadership. And the leadership does not seem to have a good idea of what we're going to do. We talked about this at the beginning of the conflict. At some point, you're going to run out of military targets to hit. Then what are you going to do? You're going to start bombing civilians. You're going to start hitting civilian targets. You're going to start hitting infrastructure. Now, here we are, and that's what we're talking about doing. I don't know what the answer is, but we have to keep a clear head about this stuff. We don't want to go too far to either side. We want to understand the times we live in and understanding the ramifications of what's going on in the Middle East right now. So I would encourage everybody to do a couple of things with this. One is when the president tweets something or the president does a press conference or when he does a national address to just say what he had tweeted earlier in the week, take all that with a little grain of salt. Understand that he can do exactly what he's saying. He has a habit of not doing that. So we have to be pretty flexible on the information we're taking in. If you are intaking information in the media that is heavy on AI, is heavy on AI slop, is heavy on propaganda, good or bad. The Iranian propaganda has been really bad. I've seen some really bad American propaganda, by the way, too. Cut all that stuff out of your feeds. Don't pay any attention to that. There's a lot of really good military reporters in America, excellent reporters. A lot of them are veterans or military, been around the military a long time. They know what they're talking about. They got the contacts. Make sure you're following them a la carte, even if you don't like their outlet. Put them in your information rotation. I have been listening to a lot of overseas media during this conflict because they're doing a lot better job of us. if you don't have, Middle Eastern media, um, Times Radio in the UK does a really good job. Some other ones, folks that have overseas media, understand media has bias. If I watch Fox News, I know what I'm getting. If I'm watching Al Jazeera, I know who's paying the bills for them. I know what I'm getting, but they also sometimes have really good information because they have stuff. So don't yell about bias. Be an adult. Be your own bias filter. Just understand when you're watching the different Al Arabia and Al Jazeera have different bankrolls and they have different agendas. Just understand that going on doesn't mean they don't have good information. Same way if you're watching Fox or CBS or ABC, they all, they do things differently. You got to understand what you're getting. Get those good reporting a la carte, pay attention to what's going on, and we'll see what the president does. Because and I'm not really going to pay attention to these third-party negotiations because until President Trump, President Netanyahu, and whoever's calling the shots for Iran all agree on something, we're all just kind of spitting into the wind on this thing. I think we're going to get something happening, either better or worse, pretty quickly in the next couple of days because the current status quo is not sustainable. And I don't know what that is. I hope it's not worse. I hope it's a de-escalation. But even with that, we know historically nothing causes future war like a bad peace. So we need to make sure whatever we do to de-escalate here is worth it, is tangible, and is securable for the future. And I have a lot of doubts about this administration getting those things done based on the people in charge of it. But I'm going to be hopeful that we do something good here. I'm glad our airmen are here safe. I think Artemis should have been the big news story today, not this stuff. Humans being the farthest out in space we've ever got them is pretty freaking cool. Make sure you give that some love and attention. Hope everybody had a good weekend, whether it was a religious holiday or just a holiday for you guys. I know my family's on spring break this week. My kid was in Rome. My kid's actually in Rome right now. She's like, there's a lot of people in Rome. I'm like, yeah, it's Easter. I know you're not Catholic and you didn't think about it. I hope y'all are blessed. I hope you're well. Keep on this stuff. And we're going to keep doing what we do here on our platforms. And whether I'm on another platform, I know I did Fox 5 Friday night. Just tell the truth like it is. Call it like it is. Don't get wrapped up in it. Don't let the emotions override all the rest of it, because this is going to get crazier as we get into the midterm elections and as President Trump's presidency comes to an end and you have the infighting in this party and you have he himself dealing with the end of it. This is going to get crazier. And our friends on Team Blue think they're going to win. So they're probably going to get a little crazy too. Keep your head, folks. Keep your bearing. We're going to get through it. Good information. Don't fall for the AI slop. Follow good people, debate with good people, and people of bad faith, cut them out of your news feed because they're not going to give you anything good anyway. Hope you're well. Have a great Monday. I'm going to be doing more of these soon. I've already reached out to a friend. I want to do one about, I'll just go ahead and say it. Secretary Hegseth decided to make the rescue all about Easter Sunday and God, and I understand the storytelling aspect of it, but boy, we have a government that's the individual departments are tweeting out Bible verses while the president is dropping F-bombs at the same time. That's not sustainable for faith or the government, either one. We're going to be talking about that. I've reached out to a friend. I want to talk about that in the future, and we're going to get back to some other policy stuff as we get into this election, because I think this election is actually going to be pretty historic on a lot of levels, not just because Congress flips. I think we're going to see a generational change in this election on a lot of levels, state level and congressional levels. So appreciate you all your time. We have the chats on here. We have the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. We'll be happy to answer you back. I realized watching TV today, I'm going to have to go get some new jackets because none of my jackets fit because I've lost so much weight since the cancer stuff. Doing well. Go for mapping here in a couple of weeks and then procedure in June to see where we're at. But I'm doing good. Hope you and yours are well. I hope you're well fed. We'll talk again real soon for more Hurt Tell. I'm still trying to figure out how to find the end button. It's up here in the corner. Take care.